Yokoso, konbanwa. Welcome to Nikka Yuko Japanese Garden, our fourth annual, scratch last year, Golden Maple reception. For those who don't know me, I'm the Executive Director, Michelle Day. I welcome you all here this evening for a very, very special event. Our goal is that the Society would like to continue doing this and growing this on an annual basis. People have heard me say this time and time again, and I'm going to say it time and time again because it's true. The garden is about reflecting the community that nurtures it. And when it was built, of course, and I'm sure Brad will reiterate this, that those contributions of our community haven't stopped. So to just take a pause, to reflect on the past, to bring people together to celebrate the now, but also talk about the future. I think we have to learn from the past to move forward in the future. So I welcome everybody here tonight, and without further ado, I will call our president, Mr. Brad Hembrough, to bring greetings.
Good evening, everyone. Michelle's already said what I need to say, so I'm done. Indeed, it's interesting in the notes that Michelle's a very good speechwriter. Thank you for that, Michelle. But she called tonight technically our fourth Golden Maple reception. Well, it really is our fourth Golden Maple reception because we could not have one last year. So this is the second one here. And it's the first really where we've been able to take advantage of the Bunka Center. And so it's great to see everybody here for our real fourth Golden Maple reception tonight. This event has created an understanding that the garden was built to recognize those of Japanese ancestry who made contributions to our southern Alberta community, and they are numerous. When the garden was built, the contribution of our founders and those involved in the garden and programming didn't stop. It's ongoing. This year, the board's worked on a strategic plan which reiterates the importance of ensuring that we recognize as an organization our community that supports this garden and is reflected by the garden. And I think that our new mission statement captures that, and it reads as follows. The Lethbridge and District Japanese Garden Society celebrates the influences of people of Japanese ancestry, narrating the history of this region through garden architecture, the natural environment, and culture in southern Alberta. It's about the people. The garden has always been about the people, as Michelle has said. It was built by our community, programmed by our community, and will continue because of the efforts of our community. Tonight, with thanks, we have leaders of our community who are here that I would like to call upon for some of them to give greetings tonight. I'm going to start with Mr. Newdorf, who is the MLA for Lethbridge East. We're finally going to recognize the work and support you've given, Nathan, and the grant we received for the Bunka Center exhibit space. This grant was $62,500. That went towards the new technological pieces that you see all around here that are incredible. And will allow us to modify our exhibit spaces as may be needed to enhance our programming into the future. So with that, Nathan, I invite you to come forward.
Thank you very much. Good evening. It is a tremendous honor to attend this evening's fourth annual Golden Maple reception and show my deep appreciation of the art collection that was so generously donated by the Schumiatcher estate to the Nikka Yuko Japanese Gardens. It's incredible to view the select works on display and consider how they represent aspects of the Japanese culture, ethics, and the symbolic meaning that they have. There's tremendous community value in having this unique collection in the garden. It offers a glimpse into the beautiful detail and the values expressed in Japanese culture. We are committed to fostering healthy and vibrant communities across Alberta and right here in Lethbridge. This is why we created the Community Facility Enhancement Program. This program supports the efforts of organizations that contribute to their communities while creating opportunities for Albertans to engage in those communities. So it was no surprise to me and a great privilege that the Nikka Yuko Japanese Garden was the deserving recipient of that grant funding. So I know this money has already been put to good use, as Brad mentioned, and if you go to some of the rooms, you'll see an incredible display showing more and more of the culture that makes this place so vibrant. I have a very, very special connection with the Nikka Yuko Japanese Gardens. Prior to their 50th anniversary, in my former occupation in construction, I had the privilege of spending 3 summers restoring the pavilion, rebuilding the footbridges, working on the bell tower, repairing the gates, and putting the slate in at the entryway to the gardens. And when you spend that amount of time, you're here early in the morning, seeing the mist come up off the lake, hearing loons call, and just working in the serenity of the garden, coming back in the winter and seeing the lights on in the winter, and knowing that you took part in that, knowing that I had a special role in ordering the paper filament that you may see in the windows and doors and the partitions from Japan, waiting weeks for it to get here, having to acclimatize it, watching your carpenters take each piece of wood work apart for the joints that had dried out, because we're a much drier climate than Japan, where that pavilion was originally built. Taking it apart, cleaning out those joints that are so incredibly handcrafted from decades ago, and putting it back together. It will forever hold a very dear and special part in my heart. We ordered special wood. We couldn't get the original wood anymore. It's not possible. We had to purchase yellow yew from Seattle, Washington, and ship that over. And again, very high humidity in Seattle, very wet wood. So we had to dry it out, and many of those pieces became pretzels by the time we went to use them. Stored in the sea cans of the city. But the efforts there were well worth it. I apologize for touching the screen. and the footbridges, the hours that it takes to mill each piece of wood, put it together, to laminate it, to bend it to those curves, to restore and maintain that heritage. There's something, one of the staff that was volunteering, or Stephen, who's now working for the gardens, there's something about putting that blood, sweat, and tears into those jobs, where you take the time and craft it. We have better tools, possibly, than they had when they first built it, but there is a very deep sense of pride and accomplishment, and it means so much that all of you came out tonight, that many of you, if not all of you, have enjoyed the gardens and taken the time to enjoy the peace and quiet that is there. It is probably one of the most special places, not just in Lethbridge, not just in Alberta, but in all of North America, which speaks to the recognition that Michelle is able to have elevated these gardens to, all that they represent, and all that they commemorate in the Japanese history. Some of it good, some of it not so good. But this is a place of healing. And with that, it is a very deep honor to be here on behalf of the Alberta government, and thank all of you for coming. And best wishes to the Japanese Gardens. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan, for your contributions to the garden. Also, thank you for leaving the microphone down to my height. Next, if I can, Shannon Phillips, MLA for Lethbridge West, who's been very supportive of this garden, attending to events often. She's here frequently, and we appreciate your support, Shannon. And so with that, if you would come up and say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you. I will be changing the microphone. Oki, konbanwa, and thank you for joining us here this evening. I don't have much more to say after Nathan shared those wonderful memories of working on the Nikka Yuko Gardens and the challenges of Japanese joinery and architecture, and his memories of some perhaps not so zen moments of trying to get the right construction materials to be able to acclimatize to our space. You know, the story of Japanese people here in Lethbridge, the Issei, Nisei, and onwards, it's a story of culture, really, and immigration interrupted, of people who came to British Columbia in search of a better life, agricultural workers mostly, you know, people making their living from fishing, and then being transported here. And as we know through so much of arts and literature and history and hard work and advocacy, then culminating in the apology, of course, in the 1980s, but even before that, the setting down of roots and the making of a new form of really immigration and culture, and really making good on what should have been the Canadian story to begin with. That sharing of arts and literature, and yes, architecture, and building materials, and all the rest of it that is so integral to Japanese society. I'm so pleased that the Consul General and the Ambassador of Japan have made it a priority to come here many times. Kishimoto-san is here from the Consul General's office as well. Thank you for coming once again. And I was speaking with him before about the various Japanese programs, not just the JET program that I participated in 20-some years ago. I was like 12. But there's also a number of scholarship programs and other exchange programs and so on, not just with our university, but elsewhere throughout southern Alberta as well. Those are the kinds of connections that I think that we want to foster and continue with, not just because of so many people of Japanese descent here in southern Alberta, but also because internationally, Japan is a great ally to us, and it is so important to keep those relationships with other democracies in Asia. And I know that the Consul General of Japan and the Ambassador have taken those ties with us seriously, and our export markets and all the rest of it. It all derives from that, and that's a good, strong partnership. I'm also really, really pleased at the amount of scholarship going on at the university, and I want to thank the Schumiatcher family and estate for their donation, and I want to thank Fujiwara Sensei for his expertise this evening. Thank you. And I look forward to many, many more events here at the Bunka Center, because ultimately this is about culture, and it's not just about an exchange of cultures, but an integration of them, because that is the continuation of the Canadian story. Thank you.
Well said, Shannon. Thank you for those words. I appreciate that. Next, if I can, I would like to first thank Mayor Blinken and Council for their support of this new building. We are indeed now a year-round attraction for the Winter Lights Festival in this new building. We strive to enhance the Henderson Lake experience now, and this building will give us the ability to continue to develop our programming, enhance our world-class attraction with the support of the city, which has been most gratefully appreciated. And with those, Mayor Higgin, if you would like to come forward, please.
Thank you, and I'll try not to touch this computer screen and fire something else. It's up, down, extra number up. Thank you very much for that. I'd like to start off by acknowledging that we're gathered on the lands of the Blackfoot people of the Canadian Plains. We pay respect to the Blackfoot people past, present, and future, while recognizing and respecting their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationships to the land. The city of Lethbridge is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. Okay, on behalf of City Council, I'm really excited to be here, and I'm not sure if I've got any of the councillors put up your hand, if there's anyone in here. Busy night tonight, so on behalf of City Council, thank you very much for inviting me to be here today. I was recently honored to be asked to attend the farewell reception for outgoing Consul General Ushida's farewell on behalf of the City of Lethbridge in Calgary. As I was there, I quickly realized the ongoing efforts of this community and how they're appreciated and recognized at a national level. We are and should be proud of the people and the philosophy of Nikka Yuko Japanese Garden. The gardens are the centerpiece, but the increased cultural awareness is a huge benefit that needs to be recognized and appreciated. The awareness of Japanese culture in our community is invaluable. It's invaluable in understanding our past, present, and future. It's part of our history. Today we'll hear from Dr. Gideon Fujiwara and his historic perspective. There's a deeply rooted connection between art and symbolism in the Japanese culture. I look forward to hearing from Dr. Fujiwara as he delves into the relationships and significance. Thank you as well to the Schumiatcher estate for the donation of the beautiful art collection. If you hadn't had the opportunity, please get out there. It is incredible. So much of the success of Nikka Yuko is based on support from donations of all kinds, whether it be through financial gifting, artifact donation, or the incredible value of volunteering. It is all appreciated by the city and the board. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Higgin. Next, I'm going to call on Mr. Kishimoto, who is the Consul at Public Relations and Culture section of the Consul General Office in Calgary. And I want to echo some remarks that Mayor Higgin just made of the incredible support that this garden has seen historically from Consul General's office. As you know, I had an opportunity to have a lovely intimate dinner with the outgoing Consul General and also the Japanese Ambassador to Canada. I believe his name is Mr. Yamanuchi. It was an incredible evening. And so that support that we see here all the time is appreciated, it is respected, and gratefully received. So I thank you for that. And so with that, Mr. Kishimoto, we'd like to step forward and say a few words.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm very honored to be invited here in this kind of very great reception. And thank you very much, Bradson, for commenting the reception of the Consul General's residence with Ambassador Yamanuchi. Yeah, I'm very great to hear that. Yes. And in my image, when it comes to maple, the maple's color should be red. But today's reception, golden maple. Oh wow! Oh yeah. And then I chose golden suit. Yeah, and it's this time, yes, it's the almost same time in Japan. It's in early to mid of October. It's all the leaves, all the trees in Japan changes to gold. Yeah, and the scenery slowly changes from green to gold. Yeah. So, actually, I don't know why this reception's name is named Golden Maple Reception, but it's golden color season is one of my favorite timing of the year in Japan and also Canada. Yeah, and also, there are great people here who have been supporting this project and our activities to promote Japan and Japanese culture and also people's exchange. Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Rudolph. Yeah. Thank you very much, Sean-san. And so when I have a talk about Japan, I'm very happy to hear that. Sean-san experienced Japan as a jet participant many years ago, but Sean-san had still, strong connection between Canada and Japan. But this is a very great thing, that I'm very happy to hear that kind of story, And also, I'd like to thank Mr. Spearman and Mr. Higgins. Yes. and to support this, Nikka Yuko Japanese project. And since I came to Calgary from last November, I have working with Michelle. Yeah, Michelle is very energetic. And I was amazed to take a look at this building at the last November. Yeah, I was amazed, wow, this building will be open, and and this hall, and I found this kind of lot of people in Lethbridge is supporting to make our relationship more strong, between Canada and Japan. This is wonderful. Yeah, this is amazing. Yeah, so I'd like to thank you very much here, all of you guys. Yeah, thank you very much. I'm standing here on behalf of Consul General, and Consul General Uchida left this country 1 week ago. Well, the new Consul General will come in 24th of October next month. Yeah. So I'm very, looking forward to invite our new Consul Generals to you guys. Yeah, very soon. So yeah, and last and not least, I'd like to let me comment about JET program. Yes, JET program is that program that Shannon-san could go to Japan and then teach English to Japanese students. Yes, this program is very good, and so we have sent more than thousands of participants from our jurisdiction since 1970s. Yes. And the JET program application window is open now, and and it's until November 14th. And so if you know youngsters around you, so please spread out JET program. Application window is open now. Yeah. And this program can accelerate the relationship Canada and Japan, and also the youngsters here, Lethbridge, youngsters can I believe they can get international experience. Yeah, international. So after JET, wherever career, business, international business, or governmental sector, anywhere, they can do that. Yeah, they can work and they can contribute to the society internationally. Yeah, and the JET program is something like that. Yeah, so I wanna mention lastly about this program, and I'm bringing my business card here. Please, let me exchange my business card. And back of my business card, it's the QR code, so you can just scan and then connect to the our so we made a promotional video clips. This is kind of music video clips for youngsters. And this video clips can run with it's pop music. Yeah, it's easier to put and to bring to the in the youngsters. Yeah. Yeah, and then I think it's about time to finish my. Thank you very much.
Did Mr. Uchida have anything to do with the music stuff? I discovered when I sat down with him, he's a fan of my band, Led Zeppelin, so maybe there's some Led Zeppelin videos. I mentioned Michelle's energy, and I want to say how proud I am of Michelle. She's been on a holiday for a month for her honeymoon, And not once did she send a text or an email. She actually enjoyed her holiday. Thank heavens. So now she's come back with more energy to continue to do the work that she does so wonderfully.
Watch out, people.
I want to take a moment to highlight Lloyd Brierly, the city manager, who's here tonight. We want to thank you. You're working with our organization in collaboration to develop the master plan, which will represent the garden's future. And we want to thank the city for recognizing the importance of working on this master plan project, which is slated to be done by mid-2023. I also want to welcome, and he's here somewhere, Dr. Brad Donaldson. Where's Dr. Donaldson? Brad, good name. Like welcome. You are the incoming president. I think you've been here for about 3 weeks. Is that about right? Well, welcome to the city. A good place to be. Currently, we are working closely with the college on many projects, including the new dome experience. If you went out for a walk, you'll see that in the back corner of the garden, which we'll be launching soon in collaboration with Travel Alberta. For the Bunka Center, it was the college team who implemented the interactive koi right behind you in the hallway there in our Sugimoto Commons. And we look forward to doing more work with the college, Brad, and future projects with you. They've been really great. Thank you. In past receptions, we've had incredible guest speakers. We've had Mark Sakamoto, who was the author of Forgiveness, who spoke at our first Golden Maple reception out of university. Earlier that evening, Dr. Harding introduced us to Dr. Saga art exhibit in the pavilion. We've had Dr. Darren Aoki and Dr. Carly Adams speak about the local history and experiences, and of course, as you all know, they've done the Memory Capture Project, and the little memory capture spot out here, taking advantage to do that if you can. Darcy Tamios, who's here tonight, where's Darcy? There she is right there. Who spoke out in the garden on a very warm day a couple years ago. Thank you for your contributions to the Golden Maple. We see the Golden Maple as reflecting on the past and acknowledging the beauty and celebrating the diversity of our community. We're a Canadian garden, and we're done in the Japanese style. So Canadians, I think, find diversity in our strength. Tonight is extra special. We have another contribution that will enhance our garden. We celebrate the largest art donation made to the garden today. Tonight I welcome Noella Bamford and James Hubbard, who are here. I haven't met them yet. Where are they? Right there in the front. Welcome. Thank you. They are representatives from the Schumiatcher estate from Regina. About a year ago, Noella, who is a family connection locally with Melanie, reached out to see if the garden would be interested in receiving such a unique donation. She enlisted her colleague, Mr. Darren Martins of the Galt Garden, and they took a road trip to take a look at these art pieces, if I can call it that. And we want to thank Darren for his expertise and time in working with you on this donation and your exhibit and assistance in the exhibit space for the center. This is a very exciting donation that you're going to hear about tonight, and we want to thank you for that donation. Thank you very much. We've had a chance to walk around. Michelle has showcased all the amazing items. You can see the lions are right out in front of the building just down the way that are spectacular. Mr. and Mrs. Schumiatcher had a strong connection with local Japan, which our garden shares. It made sense for the Schumiatcher estate representatives to see that connection, and tonight we hope you enjoyed seeing many of the pieces that are here. And Michelle and her team will continue to utilize those pieces to continue programming around the collection. You are here tonight, Noella and James, and I do not know if you want to step up and have anything to say tonight. I invite you to speak if you wish, or I leave you to just enjoy the speech that's to come.
Now we're after.
Is it after?
Is
it?
Okay. We thought it was after.
It was after.
Okay.
He's not that trained yet, you see.
Yeah. I also understand, James, that you visited the garden twice and brought more programming items, and you've put in some long hours on the road, and we appreciate that. With that, I'm done. We can now move to the keynote presentation. I'm going to call on Dr. Harding. Where is it? There it is. The past president and chair of the New Building Committee to make some remarks. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brad. Thank you, everyone, for being here. As Brad noted, along with being a past president, I'm the chair of the New Building Committee, and I want to just take a moment to acknowledge we're in the new building. It happened.
Yeah.
Here we are. An event like this is perfect. And I don't remember how many years our committee has been meeting, but we've been, waiting for this. And in fact, our committee now comes to closure at the end of this month. So we're in our last 2 days. This is the send-off for the committee. So I do want to thank board members on that committee, including David Tanaka and Chie Kinjo. But I also want to acknowledge that some of the really strong contributions to this committee have come from beyond the board. Tosh Kaneshiro in particular, incredible insights, institutional history, knowledge from being there, from the beginning, and has poured a lot of time and effort into this committee. And Carly Adams, Dr. Carly Adams from the University of Lethbridge, she's in Japan right now on our exchange with Hokkaigaku and Daigaku. So she isn't here at the moment, but she's contributed a great deal as well. And I would invite everyone, when they get a chance tonight or another day, to look at some of the exhibit rooms, to look at the time map out here that shows some of the history and contributions of the Nikkei community throughout southern Alberta. It really is such an important story and such depth of contribution. And when I think about some of those contributions of committee members, it also makes me think of the interaction between the garden and the academic community. So along with those who have been involved from early on, like Tosh Kaneshiro, we have had we've had scholars working with the garden in a variety of ways that you'll see through some of these exhibits, and it also ties into the origins of this golden maple reception. So as Brad and others have noted, we have many combinations and productive collaboration with Lethbridge College as well, so it's great to see Dr. Brad Donaldson here, Chie Kinjo, Don Sugimoto are both on the board from the college. In fact, Don Sugimoto is our VP, so you'll be seeing even more of her here soon. And so those contributions are profound and throughout the building, but tonight the spotlight is even a bit more on the relationship between the garden and the University of Lethbridge that has a long history. And from my own perspective, coming to the university as a professor almost 20 years ago, I've seen that play out in different ways. And more than half of that amount of time, I've been on the board here of the Japanese Garden. And one of the things I noticed right away is those lengths of time, 20 years at the university, 10 or so years on the board, are a drop in the bucket. I was recruited to this board by Bob Hironaka, my good friend Bob. Dr. Hironaka was chancellor of the University of Lethbridge, so that strong connection with the university, but an even stronger and deeper connection to this garden right here. He was on the board right up until his death a little over a handful of years ago, but his time started before the board existed. The earlier organizational structures had Bob right from the beginning, before we had the garden, so a 50-year span. And those kinds of stories of the ongoing contribution resounds throughout this history. Dr. Sugimoto still comes back, often on his own dime, to look at the garden. That's been more than 50 years, because he was here for the initial construction. So these stories, this resonance between university and garden is very strong. We saw it in other capacities. Many of you were here in 2017 when the garden celebrated its 50th year anniversary, and Princess Ayako of Takamado came over to represent the imperial family. And she performed that role splendidly, and when she finished the official events here at the garden, she went to the University of Lethbridge. The University of Lethbridge was celebrating its 50-year anniversary as well, and that echoed the pattern of her parents, Prince and Princess Takamado, back in 1992 for the 25th anniversary. So this kind of continued that relationship, and it was the following year that we began the Golden Maple reception. So from 2018 on, we've had this, and Brad described, some of the speakers, again, 2 of them held at the university, 2 of them held here, speakers often connected to the university in different ways. So it's a great pleasure for me at this sort of outgoing stage of my time on the board and with the new building committee to be part of this event, and in a moment to introduce my colleague, Dr. Gideon Fujiwara for the keynote. But before turning to his address, I do want to introduce a couple of other people, 2 relatively new vice presidents at the University of Lethbridge, both of whom joined in 2021. So first we have Kathy Greenwood. Kathy. Kathy was appointed as the Vice President External Relationships at the U of L in 2021. Her role is to lead and coordinate fundraising efforts for the university and enhance alumni relations and community engagement activities. She has a Bachelor of Arts in Sociology, double minors in Political Science and Art History. The art history will come in handy here. And many years of experience in fundraising, notably in the post-secondary industry. I saw in the longer CV, it looked like at least a half a dozen major universities whose campaigns she was leading, but I also saw a connection with Winston Churchill High School. So a few of us in this audience have 3 of the players on the senior volleyball team, Go Griffs. So we have a connection here. I would also like to introduce Dr. Dina McMartin. So Dina McMartin is Vice President of Research at the University of Lethbridge. Her research focuses on rural, agricultural, and industrial water resources management and treatment, as well as impacts of freshwater climate extremes on communities and economies. She is both a professional engineer and a professional hydrologist, and currently serves as one of Canada's 3 members on the International Joint Commission, Water Treaty and Apportionment Study of the St. Mary and Milk River. I'd like to invite Dr. McMartin to bring greetings on behalf of the university.
Thank you so much, John. It is a real pleasure to be here this evening representing the University of Lethbridge. I've lived here now just a little over a year. Actually lived in Regina for quite a long time and spent time in Jackie and Morris's house, and was looking at some of the pieces and reminding myself where I had seen them in the house, some not, some were on display quite prominently. And I think what I've heard in this evening's stories is really personal connections. The gardens are not just a place for reflection or meditation or quiet, but they are a place where personal stories and personal history take place. They are available to everyone, open to everyone, a place of gathering, a place of calm, but also really a place for reflection on the histories, the good, the bad, and the future, as well of our relationships together. As John mentioned, the University of Lethbridge began its history at the same time as Nikka Yuko, and I think we've kind of grown up together and continue to evolve together as well. And the relationships continue to become stronger, better, and I think more rich. We're looking at ourselves more closely, we're looking at our histories more closely, and how we connect with our communities in really meaningful ways. And so it is my pleasure to be here this evening, but also to be here with all of you and learn alongside this great crowd from our colleague about the art history of the Schumiatcher collection and the pieces that are now so proudly displayed at Nikka Yuko. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And because I'm on that theme of the relationships, I would also just like to briefly point out Dr. Janae Nugent, Associate Dean from Arts and Science. We have a strong connection to history as well. Janae's part of the Department of History, as is Carol Williams, Amy Shaw, Lynn Kennedy, chair of that department, Gideon himself, who I am truly about to introduce. It looks like I never will, but I will. I saw Dr. Bonnie Lee from Health Sciences, even our newest professor, Dr. Hidemitsu Koyanagi, visiting from Hokai Gaku and Daigaku. A lot of university community here. So anyway, that is a delight to see. But the main event is Dr. Gideon Fujiwara who will be presenting Japanese art crossing the Pacific to the prairies. Excuse me, Japanese art crossing the Pacific to the prairies, Tokugawa to Meiji societies reflected in the Schumiatcher collection at Nikka Yuko Japanese Garden. And while he sets that up, I'll just say a few comments of introduction about Gideon. Some of these may be in your program as well, though I think it fails to mention that Gideon is a delightful colleague, as everyone at the university professor of the history department, a leading member of the Asian Studies program at the University of Lethbridge. Even if you look at his educational background, PhD in Asian Studies at UBC, University of British Columbia, but an earlier master's at Tohoku University in 2004 in Japanese intellectual history, shows that connection between Japan and Canada, ideal for Nikka Yuko, ideal for this talk, and in fact, ideal for his relatively new role on the board here at the Japanese Garden. I guess it's not that new anymore. So Gideon will resume his role as the head of the Asian Studies program January 1st when he's back from study leave. He's giving this presentation even though he's on study leave because, as I mentioned, he's a delightful colleague. One other quick note about Gideon. His first book, From Country to Nation, Ethnographic Studies, Kokugaku and Spirits in 19th Century Japan, was published by Cornell East Asia Series of Cornell University Press in May of 2021. Most importantly of all, copies are available at the gift shop to purchase or peruse. I have read it, endorsed it, it's brilliant, as is he. He teaches many useful courses for us as well, including a very innovative Team Talk one with Japan, the Gakushuin College in Tokyo, where half the students and the other instructor are in Japan, half are here, and they work it out again in very innovative ways, along with his courses on China, Japan, modern history, intellectual history, Asian studies, and beyond. So it's my pleasure to introduce Gideon Fujiwara.
Well, thank you so much, John. Oki, good evening, konbanwa, erev tov. It's an honor to give the fourth Golden Maple lecture this evening. Thank you to all our guests who are here today. You've been named already, so let me just say to those who serve the garden, to all of our generous supporters and friends, thank you so much for being here this evening. So this evening we are celebrating the art collection that was so generously donated to us by the Schumiatcher estate. And thank you so much, James and Noella, for making this evening possible. So I would like to take this opportunity to speak about a few select works from this collection, while we consider the remarkable individuals that are associated with it. Among these pieces is the statue of Ninomiya Sontoku, the peasant sage of Japan, whose life and achievements I will speak about, along with the significance of what his statue symbolized in modern to contemporary Japan. For further appreciation of art in Ninomiya's time, I will touch upon the world of Japanese art through painter and scholar Hirao Rosen, a younger contemporary to Ninomiya. Finally, we will look at the lives of Doctors Morris and Jacqueline Schumiatcher, the collectors of this artwork at hand, considering their lives of philanthropy and patronage of art, which will allow us to consider the tremendous value that this collection has for us at Nikka Yuko and for the local community. So let us begin. I think some of you have already seen some of these pieces, but I'll just highlight a couple of them here. So this is the set of the shisa, the marble sculpture of the shisa, originally from Okinawa. They are the protector deities, the kami of Okinawa or Ryukyu, and here they are protecting us from evil spirits or misfortune. And often featured at the gate, the gateway to a house, on the rooftop, the entrance to a castle, entrance to a town or village. And conversely, it can also share a good fortune with those within that dwelling or community. This here is the shachihoko. So it is now happily swimming in the pavilion in the garden. This, you can see the real beautiful effect that the weather and time has had on this shachihoko. You can see some of the shiny copper that was originally plating the carp, but it's nicely weathered into this green, sort of giving it a nice marine look. And the shachihoko often appeared as a pair atop towers, the top of castles to protect them from fires. So it was believed that if flames were to arise, that the shachihoko would spew water, protecting buildings from fires. So the cousin to our shachihoko here at Nikka Yuko is this one from Nagoya. So this one has an interesting look. It has the dragon head and the body of a fish, the spiny the spine here, and this pair of shachihoko are of course protecting Nagoya Castle. So the warlord and shogun Tokugawa Ieyasu built Nagoya Castle and had the shachihoko featured atop the keep, the Tenshukaku, in order to protect this fortress. They became very popular on castles throughout Japan, although the shogun, of course, ensured that no castles were larger than his own, and had restrictions, of course, on size and even restricting the use of gold, right? Because of course the shogun would be demonstrating his power and wealth above all the other feudal lords. And allow me to share this photo that I took over 10 years ago. My family and I, we were, my son included, we were enjoying the cherry blossom festival at Hirosaki Castle. And this, you can see, well, it's one of the original castles that was not destroyed by war. But you can see atop it, indeed, there's a shachihoko supposed to protect this castle. Unfortunately for the Hirosaki domaino lord, however, this shachihoko had a reverse effect. Lightning struck it one evening, and that ignited the gunpowder kept in the keep. And so there was a huge explosion that night. Apparently some fellow lived 20 kilometers away, recorded in their diary, this boom that they heard that night. So this shachihoko did not quite fulfill its purpose, but makes for an interesting anecdote. And we, as a family, certainly enjoyed the Cherry Blossom Festival at Hirosaki. I recommend it highly if you have a chance to go there. It was also a precious opportunity for me to pour sake for my mother-in-law. So that brings us to this piece that I'd like to speak in most detail about, the Ninomiya Sontoku statue. So the peasant sage of Japan. And yeah, you've probably seen him standing just over there in the hallway, and making that long trek all the way across the Pacific here to Nikka Yuko in Lethbridge. And you can see that on his back, he's got a bundle of firewood or fire kindling. So he's gathered this from the mountain. He's going to go to town to sell it. And he's holding the strap in the one hand, and in the left hand he's holding a book. So this would be the Dashui, or the great learning, the Daigaku, a Chinese classical work of philosophy. And he was a peasant. He had no time to read at a desk, so he read this book to and from the mountain. I asked Ninomiya-san if he would like to join us in the Sugimoto Common, but he looked quite determined to go to town, and his nose was in a book also, so unfortunately he remains out there. But the perfect spot for him to be placed. So who was this Ninomiya Sontoku? He was born on the 7th month of 1787 in Kayama village to a high-ranking farming family, the Ninomiyas. In the 8th month of 1791, however, torrential rains fell on the Kanto region, causing major flooding. The Sakawa River burst its banks and washed away more than half of the Ninomiya's paddy fields. When Kinjiro was 11, his father Toshiemon became ill and died within a few years. The surviving family endured extreme poverty. 2 years later, in 1802, his mother Yoshi died. The family farm was hit by major flooding. Such hardships caused the family to disband. Before his mother's death, Kinjiro worked hard to support his younger brothers. He arose early and went into the mountains to gather firewood and sold it. At night, he wove rope and made straw sandals for more income. Kinjiro's only chance was to read on his way to and from the mountain. So we see Kinjiro at around the age of 14. And of course, this is the image that's depicted in statues across Japan and now here at the Bunka Center. After his mother died, he entrusted his 2 younger brothers to relatives, and Kinjiro was adopted by his uncle Manbei. Uncle Manbei sympathized with Kinjiro and wanted to raise him as a good farmer. After a long day of farming, Kinjiro read into the night. He read again the Analects and great learning. However, his uncle opposed Kinjiro, a peasant, spending his time reading, and he forbade him from using uncle's lamp oil. Sorry, I haven't been lecturing in a while. Please excuse me. Therefore, Kinjiro sought his own lamp oil. Kinjiro bought rapeseed from a friend and planted it to produce the plants, which he then exchanged with an oil merchant to buy his own lamp oil. Through this experience, he developed his teaching of accumulating the small to accomplish the great. For the next decade, he worked to restore the fortunes of his own household. Kinjiro continued to redevelop fields that had been washed away. He had tenants work the land. Kinjiro collected firewood, sold it, and used that money to pay the tenants' wages. Over the course of 8 years, he bought back the farm, 1.4 hectares. By 25, he became a great landlord himself. Kinjiro demonstrated not only the ethics of hard work, but also urged other farmers to study their own crop yields over a period of 10 years or longer. By doing so, farmers could predict their average income and therefore budget and plan accordingly. Such detailed surveys produced statistics that made labor more efficient and effective. News of Kinjiro's success in restoring his farm spread widely, including to the domainal lord of Odawara. From his mid-20s, Kinjiro worked to support neighboring families. He was tasked with rebuilding the finances of the Hattori family, the family of the chief retainer to the Odawara lord. He helped members of the Hattori household to solve their financial burdens. When a female servant consulted with him about her debt, Kinjiro encouraged her to repay her debt by reducing the number of logs that she used in the cooking fire. Thus, she was able to use the unused firewood to pay back her debt. Further, he helped samurai of Odawara by overseeing loans to them to help pay off their debt. This formed his teaching of Gojoko, drawing from Confucian principles. So these 5 principles, Jingire, Chishin, benevolence, righteousness, propriety, wisdom, and trust or belief. So according to Ninomiya, those with money practice benevolence by lending it. The borrowers promise to repay and or thereby uphold righteousness. The borrower gives thanks to the lender, showing propriety. The borrower makes thoughtful efforts using wisdom to ensure that they pay this back. And finally, a relationship of trust is maintained in money lending and borrowing. In his years of service to the Hattori family, Kinjiro developed this practice and successfully oversaw the restoring of their fortunes in 5 years. In 1818, Odawara Domaino Lord Okubo Tadazane recognized Kinjiro for his excellent service. By request from the family, Kinjiro spent the next few years in rebuilding the financial management of the Hattori household. He ensured that they reduced their expenses and lived within their means. Good advice. In 1842, Kinjiro came to serve the shogunate in Edo. The shogunal authorities raised Ninomiya's status from that of peasant to samurai as part of the appointment to oversee these works. In 1843, Odawara Hotoku Shrine was constructed. He took on the name Sontoku, which means reverence of virtue, which reflects some of his core philosophy. And I've got a map up here that shows so the areas in pink, these are all the domains and the villages that heard of Kinjiro's success, and they invited him to help restoration work within their own community. So places like Soma domain up here, Nikko that I'll speak about momentarily, and so this is his home domain of Odawara, and there's Kayama village, his hometown. But there were some 600 villages that he helped to restore during his career. In 1844, the Bakufu made its final assignment for Ninomiya, again at Nikko here, and it took him 3 years to complete this survey and report. The area included 91 villages and nearly 21,000 koku of land. Notably, it also included Toshogu, where Shogun Tokugawa Ieyasu was deified at a mausoleum in Nikko. Despite being injured, Ninomiya walked with a staff through the mountains and fields, personally surveying the land and assessing morale among the people. Peasants were encouraged, homes were repaired. Eventually, he and his team produced an 84-volume report of their survey. After becoming ill, Ninomiya focused on training his disciples. He continued to do service for the Tokugawa shogunate. Ninomiya died on the 20th day of the 10th month in 1856 at the age of 69. Following his death, his son Yataro was ordered to carry out the restoration of Nikko territory and to carry on his father's works there. Large-scale tree planting was carried out across some 20 villages, and land was redeveloped across Nikko territory. Excuse me. For Ninomiya, scholarship, whether it be based on Shinto, Confucianism, or Buddhism, had to be for the purpose of saving the world. He stated, quote, "There are tens of thousands of books on Shinto, Confucian, and Buddhist teachings. Whether researching them or entering deep into the mountains and doing Zen meditation, when ascending the path and mastering it, there should exist no other way than that which saves the world and benefits the world. If another such way does exist, it must be called a crooked way," end quote. So now let us look at one of his most representative teachings on the repayment of virtue. The teaching of the repayment of virtue is a practical teaching. In practicing it, the three most important things are to labor, to be thrifty, and to pass on something to others. To labor means to work hard at one's occupation. To be thrifty means to keep the family income clearly in mind and to live within that income. To pass something on to others means to practice the 5 forms of sharing according to one's means. These are what I called the 3 duties of my school. For Ninomiya, the repayment of virtue was for people to give thanks to heaven and earth, to their parents and forebears for their life, and to those who contributed to their well-being. In gratitude, they are expected to carry out the three duties: to work hard, be thrifty, and pass on what they have to their descendants and others in society. Kinjiro felt indebted to his forebears, so he worked hard to restore the family fortune. And to then pass that on to his family, but also to benefit his neighbors and other communities. From the late Tokugawa and into the Meiji period, Ninomiya Kinjiro was upheld as a symbol of virtues that were valued in modern Japanese society, including diligence, studiousness, thrift, self-reliance, gratitude, and cooperation. Through his life, Ninomiya supported, again, the restoration of 600 villages. After his death, his sons and disciples carried on his work. The Society for Returning Virtue, Hotokusha, was organized by his disciple Fukuzumi Masae. This began with the building of Odawara Hotoku Shrine in 1843. The purpose was to advance the work of Kinjiro and to spread it across all of Japan. Through the Hotokusha, landlords promoted technical improvements, support for poor farmers, and the virtues of hard work, honesty, and communal cooperation. By the 1930s, numerous statues of Ninomiya Sontoku were installed at elementary schools across Japan to teach students to work and study hard. As Japan expanded its empire across Asia and fought wars on the Asian continent and across the Pacific, Japanese students were increasingly taught virtues of sacrifice and loyalty to the nation and emperor. After Japan's defeat in the Second World War in 1945, many of these statues were destroyed, some by US soldiers, as a symbol of pre-war Japan. In the post-war years, some statues were removed, while some remained, becoming weathered. And in the 1960s, new statues were installed again. So one estimate says that there are over 1,000 of these statues in public places today across Japan. A Ninomiya Sontoku statue stands in Little Tokyo in Los Angeles. It was installed in 1983 to honor the hard work and dedication of the Issei, the first generation Japanese migrants who built the foundations of the Japanese American communities in California. The statue we see here today was purchased by the Schumiatchers in Hawaii. So this statue comes from Kalihikai Japanese Language School, and we understand that the statue was associated with the founding of this school. The fact that they were able to purchase this statue, which held such importance in earlier times, may reflect changes in Japanese language education in Hawaii. In 1940, over 40,000 Nikkei children were learning Japanese in 200 private schools. By 2008, there were 668 students attending 10 private Japanese language schools, while 7,300 students study Japanese at 38 public secondary schools. So so Ninomiya Sontoku appears in different sort of forms. Any thoughts as to why he's seated in this statue here? So there's any thoughts or? So there's this sort of common critique, I guess, in recent decades that the statue can invite hazard, right? I mean, walking and texting is obviously a hazardous practice these days. And apparently, this mindful president of this company in Aichi Prefecture, he saw a lot of children commuting to school using the roadway in front of their company, and so he said, okay, let's have Ninomiya Kinjiro sitting down and taking a breather and reading sort of in a more, in a safer sort of a position. And so, yeah, recently there's sort of different forms of kinjiro. And maybe it's also a commentary on, modern contemporary Japan, where everything's so busy, right? My form of multitasking is riding the train and taking a nap, hanging onto the the handle like this. So let me now say a few words about Hirao Rosen. So he is an artist, a scholar of Kokugaku Japan studies. And whereas Ninomiya Sontoku helped minimize damage from the tempo famine of the 1830s, Hirao Rosen's community in northeastern Japan saw the worst of this calamity. Unusually cold weather resulted in bad harvests that caused starvation, unemployment, and mass migration out of his town of Hirosaki. Although artwork was his passion, as the eldest son, Rosen had to continue helping the family business as fish vendors. However, he convinced his father to allow his younger brother to take on the family business. And in 1837, Rosen went independent and began his career as a painter. His wife Tome supported him by selling clothes and hairpins in exchange for brush and paper that he used to do his artwork. Eventually, by his mid-30s, Rosen's paintings were in demand, and he established himself as a painter in the local community. So here's one colorful print that he produced. This is of Mount Iwaki worship, a prayer for a plentiful harvest. And you can see the pilgrims are enjoying, the shops and the food and the entertainment in the foreground, but then they make their way to the shrine, Iwaki Yama Shrine, and then some make the climb up to the sacred mountain to offer prayer. And Rosen, as an artist, he made his livelihood based on commissioned artwork, right? So a patron asked him to do a painting of the 10 Buddhist, or the 10 kings that preside over the Buddhist hells. So you could see a very hellish painting here, very colorful and intricate in detail. But I had a chance to view it, one of those few occasions where they put it out on a snowy Sunday afternoon in January in Aomori. And finally, from Rosen, a folding screen, byobu. And this is obviously, as somebody who survived the 1830s famine, he had appreciation for, a plentiful harvest. And you can see multiple generations, children, the women and men, the elderly helping out on the farm, and finally storing the rice in the storehouse. And certainly, this is a scene that Ninomiya Kinjiro was familiar with all the work that he was doing, restoring farming communities. So now let us turn to the lives of the two remarkable individuals who made this evening possible, Doctors Morris and Jacqueline Schumiatcher. Morris Schumiatcher was a Canadian lawyer, human rights activist, philanthropist, patron of art, writer, and lecturer. He served as senior legal counsel in Saskatchewan under Premier Tommy Douglas. In 1947, Morris drafted Saskatchewan's Bill of Rights. He earned his BA in 1940 and his Bachelor of Law in 1941 at the University of Alberta. He studied in Japan between 1940 and 1941. He earned a Rotary scholarship to get there. Dr. Jacqueline Schumiatcher was a philanthropist and patron of art. In 1947, she applied to work as a secretary to Morris. Morris and Jacqueline married in 1955, and thereafter the couple supported the arts community in Regina. She continued to provide secretary support for his legal practice. So let us take a look at a few scenes from Morris's visit to Japan when he was 22 years old, from July to September 1940, drawn from his diary and letters back home. He introduces numerous historic and cultural sites, including from Nikko, that you heard about earlier. Morris boarded the Heian Maru ship on July 24th, 1940 at the port of Vancouver. He wrote, quote, "It was a dull morning, typically Vancouverish, with heavy skies laden with bags of moisture, which waited only the most embarrassing moment to unload their ballast," end quote. Morris expresses his appreciation for Japanese prints and says he is already acquiring pretty prints from the daily menus aboard the ship. After arriving in Japan, Morris saw historic and cultural sites across Tokyo, Osaka, Kyoto, and Nara. He also visited Toshogu Shrine of Nikko in Tochigi Prefecture, which includes a mausoleum of Tokugawa Ieyasu, who founded the Tokugawa shogunate in 1603. Morris writes of how he was impressed with this site following his climb up the mountain. Shogun Ieyasu was deified at Toshogu as the great avatar shining over the east. Nikko is also the site, again, of Kinjiro's important restoration work in his later years. So it's very likely that Morris may have seen Kinjiro statues across Japan, certainly, but also in this local area of Nikko. Morris, along with some friends, climbed Mount Fuji. He offers beautifully written reflections linking Japan's natural sites to its modern history. And I had the fortune of taking this photo New Year's morning. I think it was 2011. Morris, along with his friends, climbed the mountain, and he offers the following beautiful reflections. "I have passed through much beautiful country in Japan. I have seen your fields and your streams and your mountains. I climbed to the summit of Mount Fuji, and in the early morning saw the sun in the white clouds and knew at last why yours is called the land of the rising sun. I have seen your tall and aged trees. I have walked along the forest paths of Karuizawa and through the hills of Nikko. And I thought of these old tree trunks as Japan's national life at the time of the Meiji Restoration just 72 years ago. Japanese culture, customs, and traditions at this time were like those old tree trunks themselves, no longer vigorous or growing, but yet not without the power of giving life. Then out of the old came forth the new. When Japan decided to modernize herself, a green and pristine tree was seen out of the decadent and the dead. And so in this 2600th year of your empire, when the nation is embarking upon a change purporting to rival that made 72 years ago, I hope your old tree trunk will stand. So in this reflective statement, Morris makes connections between the natural sites of Fuji with Karuizawa and Nikko. He compares the growth of the trees to Japan becoming a modern society following the 1868 Meiji Restoration. Notably, he follows Japan's imperial calendar by dating 1940 as the 2600th year since the legendary first Emperor Jimmu established the palace in Yamato according to the ancient texts of Japanese mytho-history. He expresses hope for Japan to continue to grow as a society. Morris was not only aware of Japan's history, but also had visions for its futures with Canada, quite appropriate for a future honorary consul general. He visited a Mr. Ono in the Foreign Office in charge of foreign trade. Morris explains, quote, "My purpose in visiting him was to feel him out, to see whether Japan had any idea of appointing trade commissioners in Canada to boost Japanese sales in our country, such as most nations do have in other lands," end quote. Morris noted the role of advertising in Canadian newspapers and contracting tradesmen that would purchase Japanese goods. He continues, quote, "If Japan advertised her pottery, her silks, her cultivated pearls, and her cottons, then Canadians might be more likely to buy more Japanese goods," end quote. While he sensed Mr. Ono's skepticism about increasing trade between the two countries, Clearly, Morris had some foresight about the potential for growth in trade between Japan and Canada. While few could have predicted that Japan would eventually export Subaru Legacies and Sony Walkmans in the latter half of the 20th century, thank you to our sponsors this evening. It is fascinating to see Morris point to cultural and artworks which he himself esteemed so highly. Of course, all of these encounters took place well before the two countries went to war. In 1940, Japan was expanding its colonial rule across Asia and was fighting a full-scale war against China. Morris directly observed and felt the tensions of wartime Japan. One day in Tokyo, Morris and his friend Ichikawa enjoyed an ice cream soda at a department store. He then describes the situation as they walked out into the rain. Quote, "Just as we got out, the sirens started to blow, and everyone ran into the building and cars all stopped. The streetcars halted, and the whole life of the city seems in a moment paralyzed. Soldiers ran all over the streets in the drizzling rain, shouting out orders, telling certain people to run into certain shelters, and making themselves generally quite important. It was an air raid drill, and everyone took it very seriously. The soldiers stationed at intervals walked down the streets and ordered all the people in the little arcades of stores to crouch down low, and everyone crouched down low. I saw Ichikawa, and he looked disgusted with the whole business. He disapproves of it all, was impatient, said this should be finished sooner, that there was no need for it. He regarded it all as nonsense." Although Morris's friend said otherwise, the coming years proved that those air raid drills served a purpose in preparing Japanese civilians for the following years. Just over a year later, Japan attacked the US naval base at Pearl Harbor and other Western bases across the Asia Pacific, triggering a brutal war between Japan and the US, Canada, and their allied partners. The late years of the war saw the American bombings of Tokyo and other Japanese cities. In September, Morris sailed back from Yokohama to Vancouver. He would return to Japan in the following year in 1941 to study. Thus, from this first visit to Japan, Morris began his collection of Japanese artwork that included color prints that fit easily into his luggage. Later in life, he purchased these larger pieces that we've been enjoying this evening. During his year of study in Japan in 1941, Morris acquired masks, woodblock prints, and kimonos. The couple amassed one of the most significant private collections of Inuit art in Canada. Morris authored books on Canadian law, healthcare, and welfare. Morris became an honorary consul general, invited to Japan by the Japanese Foreign Ministry. So yeah, you can see Jackie with, of course, the carvings, the Inuit carvings, and apparently they had a room devoted just to Japanese art in their home. So it looks like he might be in that particular room, Morris. So let me conclude with a few reflections. This evening, we explored the lives of some remarkable individuals associated with the art collection donated by the Schumiatcher estate to Nikka Yuko Japanese Garden. Following years of overcoming hardship and working diligently to restore numerous farming communities in late Tokugawa Japan, Ninomiya Kinjiro asserted his principle of the repayment of virtue. He urged people to give thanks to all who made their lives possible and to repay this virtue through hard work and through passing on something to others. So how appropriate it is that we see the spirit of passing something to others manifested so brilliantly in the lives of doctors Morris and Jackie Schumiatcher. Morris and Jackie donated millions of dollars to the arts, universities, and other charities in Regina. For their philanthropy and support of art and education, both were awarded the Saskatchewan Order of Merit and Order of Canada. We are beneficiaries of the generosity of the Schumiatchers and their friends for these wonderful works of art. Thank you again, James and Noella. And finally, Nikka Yuko Japanese Garden and the Bunka Center, too, are a gift that have been passed on to us by people who had a vision of a Canadian garden in a Japanese style. A garden that would symbolize the special friendship between Japan and Canada. This gift is passed on to us by Dr. Tadashi Kubo, Dr. Masami Sugimoto, Reverend Yutetsu Kawamura, Dr. Robert Hironaka, Cleo Mowers, Mel Murakami, Tosh Kaneshiro, and many others. And certainly this gift of the garden has grown and continues to thrive owing to the efforts, visions, and support of everyone in this room. The garden staff, the board directors, the supporters and friends of Nikka Yuko. So I look forward to continue enjoying with you these splendid gifts of the garden with the newly added works from the Schumiatcher estate, and to contributing my small part to help pass on to new visitors of the garden of today and into the future. 今日はご清聴どうもありがとうございました。Thank you very much. Do we do questions or should we go to? Okay, yeah. Okay. So Elaine, yes, okay. Or is it Noella and James? Noella and James or Elaine? Okay. All right. So at this point, it's my honor to welcome up James Hubbard and Noella Bamford. So they are very close friends of Morris and Jackie Schumiatcher. And they made this just generous donation of this wonderful collection to the garden. So thank you for making this evening possible. And yeah, if you wouldn't mind sharing a few words with us.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to be here. Dr. Fujiwara basically read my speech, but I'm going to read it anyway. Thank you for allowing us to share a few moments of your time. We wanted to take this opportunity to talk to you a little bit about Drs. Morris and Jackie Schumiatcher and how this gift came about. Morris was born in Calgary, the son of Russian immigrants. As Dr. Fujiwara said, he was a lawyer, a human rights activist, philanthropist, arts patron, art collector, author, lecturer, and a senior counsel in the provincial government of Tommy Douglas. He drafted the 1947 Saskatchewan Bill of Rights. But what he didn't tell you is that it was the very first bill of its sort in the British Commonwealth. It was the basis for which came forward. He established a successful law practice in Regina in 1949 and argued numerous cases of constitutional law before the Supreme Court of Canada. He and his wife Jackie contributed millions of dollars to support the arts, universities, and other charities, and also amassed one of the most significant private collections of Inuit arts, not only in Canada but in North America. Jackie was born in France following the First World War. Her parents immigrated to Regina, where she grew up. She, like her husband, was also in her own right a philanthropist, arts patron, and art collector. She and Morris began supporting the arts community in Regina shortly after their marriage in 1955. The couple were, in addition to collecting Inuit art, collected and supported local artists. Unlike other collectors, they bought art based on what they liked. Not what was popular, nor what had some investment value. She and Morris received many awards, as you mentioned, including the Saskatchewan Order of Merit and the Order of Canada, to name but two. It's really unusual for a couple to both receive both of those awards. While they collected all kinds of art, they also collected people and the stories that make up the fabric of our lives. hence how James and I became friends, and ultimately the executors of Jackie's will and estate. Morris passed away in 2004 and Jackie in 2021. In addition to their large art collection, the Schumiatchers loved everything Japanese. And as he mentioned, as a young man, Morris wrote an essay to be able to get that scholarship to go study in Japan. And from that very first visit, he was hooked. They came to love the culture, the people, the food, the philosophy, and as a result of this love, they made a number of trips to Japan and collected memorabilia from their travels. Morris served as the Honorary Consul General of Japan for 14 years and was the President of the Saskatchewan Consular Corps, from which he received the Order of the Sacred Treasure of Japan for the service as Honorary Consul. The medal is actually in the garden. The things that have been gifted to the garden bear witness to lives well lived. Their generosity spoke of lives of service, gratitude, and appreciation for the beauty that is sometimes hidden in a very dark world. They wanted to share their love with others, and to that end made large donations to the Globe Theatre in Regina, to the University of Regina, and to the Mackenzie Art Gallery. The gift to the garden came about because my daughter Lauren was a Schumiatcher's goddaughter. She also happens to be friends with Melanie Fast, who works here. Lauren went to university here in Lethbridge, so all of you, she's a graduate of the University of Lethbridge. She got a degree in ag biotech. When Jackie died in 2021, Lauren happened to share with Melanie the conundrum we faced as executors with celebrating the Schumiatchers' lives and honoring their legacy that had been entrusted to us. An idea was born, and it became apparent to all of us that Jackie and Morris's legacy would be remembered and safeguarded here in the garden. We're here today to honor their memories and to celebrate this gift. So we have a few thanks. James.
Okay. As good friends and representatives of the Schumiatchers, Jackie and Schumi, we believe that it's important for us to basically keep them fondly remembered and to have that shared. We're brought here tonight, and I know that Jackie and Schumi would be very touched and happy with the Maple Festival tonight. We give thanks to the staff, the volunteers, the supporters of the garden. It takes a team to make something like this happen. We also we give thanks to all the friends that are here of the garden, and also the presenters, Gideon. I met Tosh here on the memory projects. There's more presenters another presentation coming up, and so thanks for that. And finally, there's a lot of spirit in the of Jackie and Schumi, the items that are now hung here at the garden. It's you know, thanks all for finding a great home for a part of Jackie and Schumi. And on a personal note, it's an honor and privilege to stand beside you tonight. And thanks for being a great friend and partner in this.
It was quite an endeavor.
And thanks everyone. Arigato.
As a little aside, my first email to Michelle was saying, you know, like, we have this stuff. You know, and she said, well, send us some pictures. And I said, well, I think there's about 200 items. I think you better just come and see. She's like, oh, God. Where is it? And so we finally twisted her arm and, you know, like, okay, stop, stop, stop. And she finally came, and it was sort of like, we took her outside first so that she could see the boy statue and the lions, and then we took her inside, and it was sort of like, oh my God, this is
The building wasn't that big enough. It's all good.
So it really was wonderful that this happened. So thank you, especially Melanie, for being friends with my daughter.
So next, I'd like to call up Elaine Toth to the front. Elaine is a PhD student of cultural, social, and political thought at the University of Lethbridge. She is also a research member of the Nikkei Memory Capture Project, led by her supervisors, Dr. Carly Adams of the U of L and Dr. Darren Aoki of Plymouth University in the UK. Elaine has also been involved with the university's Center for Oral History and Tradition since 2011 and recognizes the center as having a major influence in her passion for oral history and storytelling. Her current research explores the experiences of interracial couples in southern Alberta, one of whose members identifies as being of Japanese descent. And Elaine has a short presentation and a very moving video that she will be sharing with us. So, Elaine.
Good evening, everyone. It is a real honor for me to be here tonight. Thank you, Gideon, for your introduction and for your most enlightening and informative talk. It's truly wonderful to be able to hear about this research and what you talked about tonight in person in this beautiful Bunka Center. So I'm going to talk for about 5 minutes about the Nikkei Memory Capture Project and the memory booth, and then present a 3.5-minute digital story highlighting the life of George Takashima as narrated by his daughter Cheryl. So as a member of the Nikkei Memory Capture Project, led by Carly Adams of the University of Lethbridge and Dr. Darren Aoki of the University of Plymouth in the UK, I am always eager to talk about storytelling and the memory booth. For those of you who have not heard of it as yet, this soundproof booth located right outside the door is designed to encourage garden and Bunka Center visitors of all ages to both hear and share stories about the lives of Southern Alberta Japanese Canadians. Its interactive nature is designed to connect people in its various functions, to encourage the sharing of photos and the recording of memories and lived experiences. And most importantly for us tonight, to make available for viewing a growing collection of digital storytelling films, which really can be created by anybody who would like to tell their story. I hope you will enter the booth and explore the different options. And then if you like, fill out one of the cards available on the shelf in the booth and let us know your ideas and thoughts. We would truly love to hear from you. So we have 3 new stories in the works right now. Their authors are Janet Adachi and Peter Elkjar, Tad Mitsui and Miriam Mello, and David Tanaka, all of whom I'm really happy to see are in attendance tonight. Thank you for coming tonight. Each one of their stories will highlight an important aspect of Japanese Canadian social, cultural, or racial history, and we look forward to their completion and addition to the booth. For tonight, though, I am delighted to present the first public screening of a film reflecting the life of George Takashima. Pastor George, as he was more fondly known, was born in Vancouver in 1934. He and his family were interned in the New Denver Ghost Town internment camp during the Second World War, an experience that would strongly influence his identity, especially in the later part of his life. He was also a member of the clergy of various churches, one of which, the United Church, brought him to Lethbridge, where he and his wife Peggy would not only make a home, but where George would become an active member of the Japanese Canadian community, as you will hear about in the film. I had the privilege of interviewing Pastor George in 2017, and I consider that interview to be a highlight in my experience as a budding oral historian. Pastor George sadly passed away in 2020. The film I will play for you in a few moments is a collaborative creation between his daughter Cheryl and myself. But more central to the film is the collaboration that you will hear between Cheryl and George, a reunion through reflection and memory, a collaboration of a daughter with her father. I especially want to highlight Cheryl's involvement in the production of this beautiful tribute to her father. These are her words, her sentiments, and her memories. Up until last night, Cheryl was to be here. However, an unexpected family tragedy prevents her from being in attendance with us tonight. It really was a privilege for me to work with Cheryl, and because I had the honor of meeting George, I feel a personal connection to this story. I really thank her for allowing me to be part of her and to create this story.
Combing through photographs, personal notes, and objects, I discover a depth to my father I never knew. I knew a humble and reserved man who spoke little about his history or his achievements. Since his passing, I've discovered there were many layers to his life I did not know. I now know a man who, as an only child, spent 4 years with his parents in a government-enforced Japanese internment camp in British Columbia. He was a child who found both friends and adventures within the confines of the mountains that were his prison. I know now that he was at times rebellious when he just wanted to be like other teens who were socializing and having fun. I now know a man who, as a teenager, was told by his father not to hang around with Japanese friends, but instead to study hard, to assimilate, to forget his Japaneseness. I now know my father's life was not always easy. My father was a man who believed in God and who taught me to embrace and accept human diversity, and he showed this by continually giving back to his community. He was a husband of 56 years who defied his father's request that he find a Japanese wife and who instead fell in love with and married my mother, a Caucasian woman. I have learned that his world changed at age 59 when they moved to Lethbridge and he became the pastor of the Japanese United Church. He wrote, "For 40 years I completely shut out of my psyche my Japaneseness. It was only in the fall of 1993 when I moved to Lethbridge that I started to take an interest in my roots, in my being of Japanese background." He was welcomed into southern Alberta's distinctive Japanese Canadian presence. He organized and led ghost town bus tours to internment camps in BC to teach others about what happened to Japanese Canadians during and after the war. His involvement with the Nikkei Cultural Society and the Nikka Yuko Japanese Gardens helped him fully embrace who he was and where he came from. As a father, a grandfather, and a great-grandfather, he lived his final years proud of his Japanese heritage. He was a man who I now know wished he had taught his children more, a man who I wished would have told me more. As I go through his notes on Japanese history, his history, my history, I now know a complex and interesting man, one I wish I could have just one more visit with.
So it is stories like these about Japanese Canadians and the celebrations and challenges they faced as they settled in southern Alberta after the war that create meaning and that need to be told as integral parts to our multicultural society. We want these stories to be recorded, protected, and shared with future generations. Thank you.
Donation and the story that Gideon told and what you told is fascinating and appreciated and respected by all of us here. So thank you very much. I hope I get a chance to speak with you before the evening ends. Gideon, I think I found a new university lecturer that I want to take a course from. So with that, everyone, I want to thank you all for being here. I don't know if Michelle wants to say anything more. She always likes to get the last word. But thank you all.